Today I'm doing a 10 episode recap, sort of a who wore it better of the last 10 episodes. Who wore it better, the book or the movie. And the first episode covered American Psycho, and I'm going to say hands down that the book won, because even in all its gore and depravity, the gore and depravity are what made the story. Even though it's not for the faint of heart or weak-stomached, and it was way too watered down for the movie. Next, I did Dreamcatcher, and on that one I will also say the book wins because the story takes the characters kind of full circle. The movie, even though I enjoyed it, it cuts off too bluntly at the very end. We don't know what happens to our two survivors, Henry and Jonesy, after they quash the alien invasion. Third episode was The Lovely Bones, which I will say is a tie. The book is written perfectly for its intended audience, which is more of, an adult audience. And the movie follows it, but is fine-tuned just enough for the younger audience that it would inevitably attract, being that the protagonist is a 14-year-old girl. Fourth episode, A Clockwork Orange. This is probably the one and only time I'll ever say the movie wins, because when I read the book, I found it almost impossible to understand, not without visual accompaniment. The fifth episode was Ghost Story, and again I'll say the book wins, because the movie being done in 1981, the dialogue was weak and the special effects were pretty single track. They didn't have to use so many skeletons, really. Episode 6, we need to talk about Kevin. I'll say the movie wins again, because the book contains so much of Eva's personal sanctimony and self-congratulation that it made her a bit unlikable, and depending on your own personal opinions and viewpoints, it might make you think that her having Kevin as a son is kind of a well-deserved comeuppance. It's a personal thing. Alright, episode 7, we had 5 books and movies in there, because they match so closely that to do single episodes on each of them, there just wouldn't be a whole lot to talk about. So, Fight Club. They tie because they practically match, but the movie does have just a little bit of the edge because there is no suicide in the end. Memoirs of a Geisha, also a tie because they match so closely. Again, the book has a little bit of the edge because it goes beyond the ending of the story into, Sayuri's life with the chairman and how they traveled the world together, and how, she opened up a little tea house in the States when she traveled to the U.S. with him. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo was also a spot-on match, as much as it had to be, because the book just read so fluidly that the movie must have been just super easy to adapt. After that, same episode, The Girl Next Door, spot-on match, equally disturbing and suspenseful. And the last one of that little cluster was An American Crime, also a tie. It was a match to match as much as the movie could go with, given the age of the star, but still maintained a solid enough emotional element to cover how intense what was going on was. Alright, episode 8. I covered The Handmaid's Tale. And that is a tough call to make as to who won, the book, the movie, or the miniseries. The book captures all the denial and its hypocrisy. But the movie and the miniseries so far very carefully avoid the one glaring hypocrisy, the unbabies. The movie captures the fear and the bleakness perfectly, and the ongoing miniseries maintains the most accurate representation of the book, but is still going on its own path with exciting challenges with story and character development. With Carrie, the one book done 3 times because it's like a cult classic Mean Girls story wrapped in a horror movie. I'll say the book wins. All the actresses who play Carrie are way too pretty. And the only adaptation to follow closest to the book had the worst dialogue. And in 2013, even though I enjoyed it, there really was no need for an iPhone adaptation. That's just all there is to it. And lastly, The Green Mile, also tied because the movie adapted the book smoothly in the way it was retold as a confessional and not a memoir. Alright, now that pretty much covers a 10 episode recap. Coming up in the next 10 episodes, I'm going to cover some of the Hannibal Lecter movies, written by Thomas Harris. I have a couple of short stories by Stephen King to cover. I'd like to take my best shot at Orange is the New Black. It's just a little hard to match how 1 year in a book can cover 7 years in a miniseries. But I hope to see you there, and I hope you'll like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Before we see you next time, feel free to weigh in. Give me your thoughts as to who wore it best, the book or the movie. Then I'll see you next time.